You're going through your token limits a lot faster now, and Anthropic themselves have said things have changed. And so now you have to use Claude differently. And so I'm going to walk you through 3 tactics that you need to start implementing into your workflows. And it does not matter if you're using Chat, Cowork, or Claude Code, so that you can preserve your tokens, get the actual work done, and not hit your limit before lunch. And I use Claude all day, and I've been talking to a ton of people having the same issue. And I even help businesses implement AI into their systems. And better yet, I'm even going to provide you with some bonus tips towards the end of the video. And unfortunately, I do not think this issue will be solved anytime soon. Easiest hack you can start today, and a lot of people have started to do this now, given that a lot of people are having issues with their token usage and their rate limits. To my understanding, if I were to use this chat again, this is a ton of context Claude has to read through every single time just to get up to date so it can now give me a proper answer. So what do you want to do? Well, there's a few things. Number one, always create new chats. That means, yes, you're going to have more chats on the side here. That's totally okay. If I did want to use this chat again, what you can say is, and I'm going to show you how this works on Claude Code as well. What you can say is essentially just give me a summary of this chat. Okay, so it's going to give you the summary, and then I can come in here and open up a new chat, and I can basically just continue onwards. Now, if we're in Claude Code, it's very much the same thing. We do have a few commands we can use to our ability. Number one, it is the compact feature. Okay, so we're going to clear conversation history, but keeps a summary in context. If you're getting to the point where you now have this chat is too long, you have already tremendously burned through too many tokens. What you want to do now, every so often, at specific points in your projects or whatever you're building, you just want to basically compact it, and it's still going to hold that context. And we can also run clear. This is going to save a tremendous amount of tokens because a lot of the time there's unrelated tasks between what we're trying to do. So we can just basically clear that information away, kind of reduce the load on the model, and then we can keep working. You want to think of every message as a snowball rolling down the hill. And the bigger the snowball gets, the more expensive or the higher your usage is being used. And this leads us to our second tip. Now, a lot of people, what they're doing is going off kind of that snowball analogy. They are basically just rolling the snowball down the hill, and it gets too expensive. So what you now want to do is not only focus on better prompting, because you're going to get better outputs. We already kind of know that. More importantly, you can essentially just kind of word vomit. Okay, you can use something like Whisper. You can essentially just word vomit, provide all the context possible to the model at the time, depending what you're doing. Because what you're seeing here, essentially, is one big, long prompt. Now, it doesn't really follow the main conventions of great prompting. And as we move forward in kind of the AI era, I think it's going to be less important to potentially have fantastic prompting. Just note here that this is one big prompt. A lot of people, in my opinion, would basically take these points and essentially just keep following up with the model. And that, again, used to work, but now it just starts to eat at your usage. So what you want to do now is kind of map out your entire workflow. Again, kind of plan before even using these models, because you want to get to a point where you do have enough information that you know kind of what A to Z looks like, so that you can provide the model with a big prompt. And the main point being, instead of making these individual messages, just make a decent sized prompt for a lot of the work that you're trying to do. Okay. And again, you can always do the summarization I showed you in tip 1, and then just carry that onto a new chat if you feel like this chat is just getting too big. And a key thing to note is that you usually want to put the best information or the most important information at the top of the prompt, just if you are giving it a very big prompt. Sometimes there is a bit of that context rot, as they say. So you always want to just start off with the most important information that you're like, this needs to be dialed in. So you do want to do that. Also, you can start batching your asks. So as you can see here, maybe 6 points is too long and you don't want to do that, or maybe just the task you are doing only requires maybe 2 to 3 points. So instead of asking all 6, what I can do is make these maybe 2 messages. So I can do 1, 2, and 3. Then I can kind of move on to maybe sections 4 to 6. Okay, so you can start batching your asks. Again, depending on the task you are doing, both in chat or in code, there obviously is some flexibility there and just some customization on your part. Now, tip number 3 is definitely one of the bigger needle movers for sure. It's definitely not ideal though. But given kind of how Claude is acting, I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. So you definitely do want to understand tip number 3. So for instance, when it comes to these models, right? So Opus is the expert, Sonnet is the workhorse, and Haiku is the speedster. And now, given the new way of Claude currently, you have to now start using different models. So when it comes to Opus, essentially is the expert. Again, would you go to the CEO with a like junior level task? It's just a waste of time? Of course not. So with the Opus, it's complex multi-step problems, it's architecture decisions, it's debugging hard issues, and it's planning and strategy. Sonnet is obviously the workhorse. So this is great for writing, editing, explaining, right? Again, the CEO could do this. They definitely have the talent to do it, but again, it's probably a bit of a waste of time. So instead, we're going to use Sonnet for writing, editing, and explaining. Simple code changes. So instead of having the CEO do the code changes, we just have Sonnet do it. Writing tests, and most daily work. So this becomes now the daily driver. Then we obviously have Haiku, which is kind of the speedster. This is great for just looking up anything very quickly, formatting, renaming, anything repetitive, and yes or no questions. Okay, so this essentially is your junior level. This is like mid-management, and this is your CEO. So bonus tip number one, a lot of you are using, but sometimes you are using it wrong, and I would say start using it more often now. Okay, and that is projects. So if we come into my YouTube project here, as you can see, we have a lot of information. So it holds the context. So if you find yourself, again, asking same old, and you're like, how do I fix this? Create your project. And I would say spend more time now in your projects. Because even if you start a new conversation, the context is already baked in. And as a lot of you know, Cowork now has projects themselves, okay? But you have to be careful because Cowork does tremendously eat up your usage. So you just have to think, is this the only way to potentially do that, or can I do it for cheaper? Now, if I'm in Claude Code, it's important to note that you want to make sure your MD file is lean. A messy or bloated or a long MD file essentially is just tax you're going to pay for every interaction. You can always create separate instructions and other detailed files and essentially just point the Claude MD file to that. So bonus number two is very simple, but not too many people do it. And that is telling specifically Claude to be concise. Okay, so Claude in fact defaults to being thorough. And in fact, most of the time it's too thorough. As we are in settings here, okay, just in the general settings here, all we're going to do is we're going to add essentially no filler language, no fluff, no corporate jargon, keep everything professional and concise, okay? Now, if you don't have this filled out, a lot of people don't, I would say fill this out. There's some very key information in this text here. Now, you can kind of do this on the global level, as you see here, or what you can really do is just basically say it in your prompting. Be concise, give me 2 to 3 sentences, X, Y, and Z. Now, bonus number 3 is very simple. It's understanding your usage account. Okay, just like your bank account, you probably have a tally or an understanding of how much is going in, how much is coming out. You need to have that understanding with your session. Now, unfortunately, Anthropic doesn't really provide you with much usage guidance or guidelines or how much you're actually paying for. Instead, it just shows you kind of this bar. You have to understand what really starts to move this usage up. Obviously, Opus 4.6 does that. Cowork does that tremendously. The browser, computer use really starts to move this bar towards the end. Now, bonus number 5 is also a hack, but again, not ideal. So that's why you want to adhere to the other tactics, but it's understanding peak hours for Claude. 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. ET time, 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. PT time, and then 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. GMT time on weekdays. During these times, the servers are absolutely slammed. And as we know, an engineer from Anthropic went to X and said, you're going to go through your sessions faster during peak hours. And again, sometimes that's not ideal. Sometimes a lot of people like working in the mornings, and then maybe stopping at the afternoons and taking a break or whatever. It's the same concept as going to the gym at 6 a.m. when no one's around compared to going to the gym at 5 p.m. when everyone just got off work and the gyms are absolutely slammed. Again, 6 a.m. for a lot of people is not ideal. But if you're trying to get solid work done, you may have to start going to the gym at 6 a.m., okay? You're going to have to start potentially using these models and waking up a little earlier to get a lot of that work done, or again, just planning around that. So those are essentially all the tips these pro users are using to preserve and not spend so much on tokens, as it's now becoming more important than ever. So if you found that helpful, just subscribe. Best case scenario, you're going to learn the world's greatest technology. Worst case scenario, you unsubscribe in the next 5 seconds, 5 weeks. Totally fine with me. As always, my friends, stay human, and I'll see you next time.